today marks the first day of elections for South African citizens living abroad. Now, over 76,000 South African citizens are expected to vote today and tomorrow in 111 South African missions abroad. Now, South Africans in 9 countries will cast their votes today, whilst the rest, that's the other 102, are expected to cast their ballots tomorrow. But we've got the IEC, of course, to help us navigate through this. The IEC also saying that special votes within South Africa will take place on the 2 days preceding the election day of the 29th, which will, of course, be the 27th and the 28th of May. But for more, we're joined by the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, Masego Sheburi. Mr. Sheburi, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakini.
Mr. Sheburi, let's just start with what's happening today, because officially the voting process kicks off today for the 2024 elections. But let's talk about who will be voting today. And of course, are there any missions that have started voting already?
Indeed, there are just under 77,000 South Africans who will cast their ballots overseas, because either they are registered against a mission overseas or they are temporarily out of the country. In the majority today will be countries in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and those countries. 9 missions will vote today. However, we can also confirm that votes have already been cast in Wellington, in New Zealand, in Canberra, Australia, Singapore, and Bangkok. And those missions will operate the 17th, and again on the 17th, which is a Friday, and again on the 18th, which is a Saturday. The rest of the territories will vote on Saturday, the 18th, and the biggest mission there will be London, which has just under 24,000 South Africans registered to vote there. And because of the sheer number of people there, special arrangements have been made to accommodate those voters over 2 days, which is a Saturday, the 18th, and Sunday, the 19th, from 7 in the morning until 2100 hours in the evening, only for the voting station in London.
So, Mr. Sheburi, you've said as the IEC that the international segment of the voters' roll for out-of-country voters has 56,698 voters, but the total expected to vote is just under 77,000, as you said. So please just explain that for clarity for people trying to make sense of those numbers.
Okay, thanks for that, Sakina. The 56,000 are persons who are ordinarily resident overseas, and for that reasons have registered against a segment of the voters' roll overseas. The balance of 22,000 are persons who may have been registered in the country or elsewhere on the international segment, who have given the Commission notice that they will not be voting at their home registration, at their home voting station of registration, because they are temporarily out of that country or they are temporarily out of the Republic. Those ought to have given notice to the Chief Electoral Officer by no later than the 22nd of April. And those who have given notice have their details included in the mission at which they indicated that they intend to vote. So there's 56,000 registered overseas ordinarily, and 22,000 are people who've indicated that they will be away from the Republic on voting day and therefore wish to vote by special vote abroad.
So, Mr. Sheburi, how is the voting that's going to be taking place abroad going to be different, just in terms of the number of ballots and which ballots will be cast for expats as opposed to those of us who will be voting here at home?
For national and provincial elections, we have a number of political boundary or constituencies. The first one is the province and the region. The second one is the entirety of the Republic. People who are voting overseas and those who are voting in the country outside the province in which they are registered receive only the national PR ballot. So for South Africans voting overseas, they will receive the national PR ballot. The voting procedure will be similar to the voting procedure in the country for special vote. What do we mean by that? A voter will be given their ballots and they will be given 2 envelopes. Once they've made their mark on the ballot, they will insert that ballot in an envelope that has their details on the cover. And there's a secondary, let me start again. They'll have 2 envelopes. The first, the ballot they insert in an envelope that has no details in it. And then that unmarked envelope gets inserted in a second envelope, which has the name of the mission, the ID number, and the details of the voter on that thing. That ballot is deposited then into the ballot box in use at the voting station. Importantly for South Africans abroad, those ballots are not counted at the missions. They are transported via secure channels back to the Republic, where we start with the process of verification to see whether people who voted are those who are entitled to vote. We do that in the presence of representative of contestants. And once voting is closed in the country on the 29th, we will start the process of counting those ballots that would have been cast overseas.
And Mr. Sheburi, with regard to identification documents, because we are told you need to have either a barcoded ID or an ID card. What happens if someone, for example, has a passport or an ID and the name is different, for example, from the name on the voter's roll? So let's say I go abroad and I get married. So I've got one name on the voter's roll and another name perhaps on my document. What happens in that instance?
That's a simple one, and it happens often. If you are registered on the voter's roll and you change your name, not ID number, you change your name because of marriage, you do not have to do anything because marriages are registered with Home Affairs. We get updates from the Department of Home Affairs, and we will update your details automatically on the voter's roll. So the entries on the voter's roll are controlled by the ID number and not so much the name. So if you get married in between elections, you'll still appear at the voting station. Your name will be updated to reflect the latest entry on the National Population Register.
Mr. Sheburi, you said that once people overseas have cast their ballots, those will then obviously be sealed and brought to South Africa to be counted. So when will they be counted? Will it be on the same day as everybody else? And where will that counting take place?
I can see you asking something, but I can't hear you. You've lost audio.
Our apologies there. Can you hear me now, Mr. Sheburi? Still not able to hear me.
Could you repeat? I lost you for a bit.
I think we may have lost our sound connection there. Let's try one more time, Mr. Sheburi. If you can hear me now, please indicate.
I can hear you now.
Okay, great stuff. I was asking about the counting of the overseas ballots, because you said that they would not be counted at the missions. They would actually be brought back to the country. So when will they be counted, and where will it be? Will those ballots be stored before being counted?
The cast ballots overseas will be transported in secure channel back to the Republic. They will be counted at the headquarters of the Electoral Commission after the close of voting stations on the 29th. They will be counted in the presence of agents representing all contestants that are present at the counting station. The first thing that we do, will start the verification to check whether persons who've cast ballots are those that have been approved to do so. Once the verification are done, we discard the envelopes with voter details and mission details, and start opening those unmarked envelopes, mixing the ballot up so that we de-link the identity of voters and the ballots that have been cast. So the counting will happen in the country after the closing of voting stations on the 29th.
And then, Mr. Sheburi, people are still asking about special votes. So let's quickly talk about that. 2 days, the IEC has said, have been set aside, the 27th and 28th of May. So some people are asking whether they can still ask to cast a special vote. Can they still apply for that at this stage?
The period to apply for special votes in the country closed on the 3rd of May. We have approved in excess of 1.6 million special votes, the majority of whom are station visit special votes. Those persons will then vote on the 27th or on the 28th at their voting stations. Those who are approved for home visit will be visited at the addresses they provided, either at their homes or places of confinement. Unfortunately, the opportunity to apply for special vote has come and gone. Tonight at midnight, we will close applications for people who already know that on voting day, they will be away from their voting stations. They have until midnight tonight to indicate to the Commission that they will not vote at their voting station and indicate that other voting station at which we should make arrangements. Those persons have until midnight tonight to give us that notification. To do so, you can go on our website and just click on the link that says, I'm away on voting day, give us your ID number, give us the station at which you intend to vote, and we will approve you for a Section 24A that will be cast on voting day outside the voting district at which you are registered.
Well, Mr. Sheburi, thank you so much for all of that clarity. Deputy Chief Electoral Officer Masego Sheburi. Today marks the first day of elections for South African citizens living abroad. Over 76,000 South African citizens expected to vote in 111 countries across the world between today and, of course, tomorrow. Now, here at home, the IEC has set aside 2 days, the 27th and the 28th of May, for special votes. Unfortunately, application for that has closed. But if you're going to be away from your actual voting station where you are registered, but you're still going to be around somewhere, as Mr. Sheburi explained, you have until midnight to actually apply for that. So on Wednesday next week, the Commission will launch the National Results Centre. And of course, we'll bring you up to speed with what that looks like and where it's going to be.